Imagine a machine telling you today, with, absolute mathematical certainty, that you will develop Alzheimer's disease in 10 years.
Right.
You have zero symptoms, you feel perfectly healthy. It is just a statistical forecast based on an algorithm processing your entire life.
Yeah, that's a lot to take in.
What do you do with that information? And maybe more importantly, who else gets to see it?
Exactly.
Today, we are pulling from the July 4, 2026 AI News Daily Digest, and we are exploring how artificial intelligence is radically shifting. It's going from, a tool we use to this invisible atmosphere that is actively shaping our reality. We are looking at this profound evolution where AI is anticipating our biological future, curating our physical environments, and even mimicking our creative soul. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Think of AI less like a tool you pull out of a toolbox and more like the atmosphere we breathe. It's invisible, but suddenly it's shaping every single part of your day.
The sources from today's digest, they really highlight a defining characteristic of this exact moment in technology. We're watching rapid systemic innovation just completely outpace our societal infrastructure.
Oh, absolutely.
The algorithms are no longer just retrieving information for us. They are generating outcomes based on variables we can't even perceive as humans.
Yeah.
And understanding the mechanics of how these systems operate and the friction they create when deployed in the real world is, well, it's essential for anyone trying to navigate this landscape right now.
So let's jump right into that Alzheimer's scenario, because the digest highlights this massive breakthrough from a leading university. They have developed an AI model that fundamentally changes disease detection.
Right, it's a huge shift.
We are moving past the era where an AI just scans an X-ray to find a tumor faster than a radiologist. This new model, it ingests these massive multimodal data sets.
Your longitudinal patient history, smartwatch biometrics.
Yeah, lifestyle factors, your deep genetic sequencing, all of it. And it uses all of that to predict the onset of diseases like diabetes and Alzheimer's years before any physical symptoms actually manifest.
What's fascinating here is the mechanism driving this. It's a total paradigm shift.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with highly advanced neural networks that excel at pattern recognition across what we call a high-dimensional latent space.
High-dimensional latent space. Break that down for us.
So human doctors, no matter how brilliant they are, they can only consciously correlate a few variables at a time, right?
Like blood pressure, family history.
Exactly. Maybe a cholesterol panel. But this AI is simultaneously mapping millions of subtle, seemingly completely unrelated data points.
Mm-hmm.
It might find that a specific microscopic protein folding anomaly when you combine it with, say, a subtle irregularity in your deep sleep cycle over a 5-year period.
It finds the connection.
Yes. It finds that those two things result in a 99% probability of cognitive decline. It maps the invisible causality that we just can't see.
It is finding the butterflies that cause the hurricanes in our biology.
That's a great way to put it.
But I have to say, here's where it gets really interesting and a bit scary, honestly. The source material calls this a miracle of preventive medicine, and I really struggle with that framing.
Why is that?
Because if you call it a biological crystal ball, it sounds magical. But practically, it sounds like an inescapable statistical trap for you as a patient.
Well, I would definitely steer away from the crystal ball metaphor because, that implies some sort of predestination or magic.
Right, it's just math.
It is ruthless probability. And the tension you are feeling, that's exactly the massive data privacy issue outlined in the research today.
Yeah, because who controls that math?
How about it? For the entire history of medicine, your health record has been a historical document. It is a log of things that have already happened to you. But this technology, it transforms your health data into a forecast of what will happen to you.
Which fundamentally breaks how our society operates.
It really does.
Think about the real-world application of a forecast versus a record. If I have a record of a broken arm, fine, it's in the past. But if an algorithm generates a highly accurate forecast that you have an 80% chance of developing a chronic, incredibly expensive illness in a decade.
Who owns that forecast?
Exactly. If my health insurance provider gets access to the model's output, does a pre-existing condition suddenly become a pre-symptomatic condition?
That is the core systemic challenge the Digest is pointing to today. The technology to predict the future of your body now exists, but the societal framework to protect you from that prediction, it just does not exist yet.
Or totally exposed.
Right. If an employer or an insurer integrates these predictive models into their risk assessments, you could theoretically be penalized for a biological reality that hasn't even happened yet.
That is wild to think about.
And the researchers in the source material, they're quite clear that the models require continuous access to the most intimate details of your life.
Including your DNA.
Yes, to maintain their accuracy. So you are trading absolute privacy for absolute biological foresight.
That surrender of our internal biological agency is fascinating, especially when you look at the next big story in today's digest. Because, well, we are making the exact same trade-off with our physical external movement.
We're moving from the body to the environment.
Right. The surrender is moving from our cells to our streets.
You are referring to the major rollout from the tech sector regarding the next generation autonomous vehicles.
Yeah, the digest details this new class of AI-driven cars that go, significantly beyond standard self-driving capabilities.
Because we've known about cars staying in their lanes, right?
Yeah, braking for pedestrians, lane
Yeah.
assist, we've had that for years. But the digest focuses on how this new system operates as a continuously learning microenvironment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the distinction lies in the application of reinforcement learning, combined with real-time biometric feedback.
Okay, so it's reading you while you ride.
Exactly. The AI isn't just navigating a map from point A to point B anymore. It is constantly adjusting the parameters of the journey based on the passenger's physiological state and historical preferences.
It's customizing the ride in real time.
Yes. The algorithms are processing data from in-car sensors to optimize not just for safety or speed, but for psychological comfort.
It's like a mobile butler. It's engineering the perfect commute for you.
Right.
It senses your heart rate is slightly elevated after a long day at the office, so it proactively dims the cabin lights, adjusts the ambient temperature to exactly 68 degrees, changes the suspension to soften the ride.
It might even select a route that avoids sudden stops.
Even if it takes 4 minutes longer, it's wild.
Mechanically, the car becomes this personalized, responsive organism. And it utilizes edge computing to do this.
Edge computing, meaning it's processing all this sensor data locally within the vehicle, right?
Exactly. Rather than relying entirely on cloud servers. This allows it to make split-second adjustments to your environment. The ultimate goal outlined by the developers in the sources is to make the transportation aspect entirely frictionless.
The vehicle acts as a seamless extension of your living room.
That's the pitch.
I hear the pitch, but, this frictionless extension of the living room sounds like a profound luxury problem that masks an immediate crisis.
The displacement of workers?
Yes. The sources treat this as an economic dilemma, but let's look at the systemic velocity of this displacement. If these cars can dynamically route themselves better than any human and they never get tired...
They don't need brakes.
Right. What happens to the millions of professional drivers next year? We aren't just talking about Uber drivers here. We are talking about long-haul trucking, local delivery, public transit.
The source material is quite explicit about that systemic impact. The transition we are seeing is not a gradual phasing out.
It never is with software.
Exactly. The scalability of software means it happens exponentially. Once the model is perfected in one vehicle, an over-the-air update instantly makes a million vehicles superior to a human driver who has 30 years of experience.
Overnight.
And the friction isn't just about the driver losing a job, it is about the ripple effect through the entire transportation economy.
The infrastructure built around human drivers.
Think about the diners, the motels, the repair shops that exist entirely to service human drivers along major logistics routes.
It completely redraws the economic map of the country.
It really does.
You have the individual consumer experiencing the most relaxing, flawlessly engineered commute of their life, completely insulated in their little microenvironment, and physically sharing the exact same road is a professional driver whose entire economic utility is just being rendered obsolete by the algorithm powering that microenvironment.
It is a profound demonstration of technological leverage. The AI optimizes efficiency and comfort at a scale human labor simply cannot compete with.
No way we can compete.
And the digest makes it clear that the technology is deploying much faster than governments or local economies can retrain or transition that massive workforce. We are currently observing a massive shock to the labor market happening in real time.
So we're letting algorithms optimize our cellular health, we're letting them optimize our daily movement and the broader economy, and now, according to the sources, we're letting them optimize our emotional state.
This is where it gets really subjective.
It does. This brings us to the most abstract and, frankly, the most jarring part of the digest. The algorithmic muse.
This is a fascinating convergence of data and art. The digest reports on a collaboration where technologists and artists trained a specialized generative AI on countless hours of classical and contemporary music.
And the results?
The output is original symphonic compositions that, well, blind testing has shown to be entirely indistinguishable from those written by master human composers.
Indistinguishable, but how does that actually work? Because it's one thing to train a model to recognize a stop sign or a pedestrian. How do you train a machine to write a crescendo that makes a human being feel sorrow?
It comes down to mapping the mathematical structures of emotional resonance.
The math of emotion.
Basically, yes. Music, at its core, is highly mathematical. It relies on frequencies, intervals, tension, and resolution.
Sure.
The AI utilizes large language model architectures, specifically these advanced attention mechanisms, to analyze the entire history of recorded music.
So it's looking for patterns in what we already love.
Exactly. It learns the precise chord progressions, the instrumental layering, and the rhythmic patterns that historically triggered dopamine or cortisol releases in the human brain.
Wow.
It doesn't feel the music, obviously. It calculates the exact sequence of notes required to make you feel the music.
You know, that explanation actually makes me deeply uncomfortable.
A lot of people feel that way.
Because I look at an AI symphony like a perfectly manufactured synthetic diamond.
Okay, I like that comparison.
If you put a synthetic diamond under a microscope, it is flawless. The carbon atoms are aligned with mathematical perfection. It catches the light brilliantly. But it fundamentally lacks the messy, highly pressurized, chaotic, million-year history of a real diamond pulled from the earth.
The history gives it value.
Right. By definition, doesn't this AI music lack a soul?
That is the exact philosophical divide the critics in the source material raise. The argument is that true art is a transmission of lived human experience.
Yes, exactly.
When you listen to Beethoven, you are supposedly connecting with his human struggle, his deafness, his mortality.
A connection across time.
Right. A server rack sitting in a data center somewhere does not have a mortality crisis. Therefore, critics argue the output is just highly sophisticated acoustic manipulation, not art.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate against my own point here, because the digest highlights the proponent's side too, and we have to look at that. If I'm sitting in a concert hall with my eyes closed, and a piece of music swells, and the strings hit this perfectly agonizing minor chord, and a genuine tear rolls down my cheek.
You're feeling it.
I am feeling a profound, real human emotion. If I open the program afterward and read that an algorithm generated the sheet music, does that retroactively sheepen the tear I just cried?
The proponents argue that it does not. They suggest that the origin of the catalyst doesn't invalidate the human reaction.
The feeling is still real.
Exactly. If the AI is a tool that expands the boundaries of what we can hear and experience, then it is serving the function of art. The machine may be mapping our neurochemistry, sure, but the emotional response happens entirely within the human experiencing it.
It forces us to question if the human spark of creativity is some mystical force, or if it is just a highly complex pattern of data that a sufficiently advanced system can eventually map and replicate.
Which is staggering to think about.
It really is.
Yeah.
But this brings us to a massive structural problem in today's deep dive. If an algorithm is diagnosing our diseases before we feel them, driving our cars better than we can, and composing the soundtracks that make us cry.
We have fully outsourced our agency.
Yes, we're entirely reliant on these systems. Who is actually at the wheel here?
This raises an important question, and it naturally surfaces the final, overarching theme in the digest: the chaotic reality of the AI regulatory landscape.
It's a mess out there.
It is. When a society becomes structurally dependent on algorithmic systems, the immediate question is how those systems are governed, and more importantly, how they are audited for systemic bias.
The sources mention that several countries are scrambling to draft legislation focused on transparency, accountability, and fairness. But I'm stuck on how you actually enforce fairness in a machine.
It's incredibly difficult.
Because if the AI predicting your healthcare has a built-in bias from its training data, the real-world consequence is a catastrophic denial of medical care for certain groups of people.
The bias problem is central to the regulatory debate right now. AI models are not inherently objective. They mirror the historical data they are trained on.
They learn our flaws.
Yes. If a healthcare model is trained primarily on data from a specific demographic, its predictions for minority populations will be statistically flawed. The regulations aim to force developers to open the black box of their algorithms.
So someone can actually see how it works.
Right, so independent auditors can verify the training data and the decision-making pathways.
But the logistics of regulating this sound practically impossible. The digest talks about the need for international cooperation and global standards. But regulating AI right now, I mean, how do you write a speeding ticket for a car that can change its own engine while it's driving?
That is a highly accurate assessment of the technical friction we're seeing. Bureaucracy and lawmaking are deliberately slow. They are iterative processes designed to build consensus.
They move at a crawl.
Artificial intelligence, particularly these models using continuous reinforcement learning, they evolve at a speed that just breaks traditional legislative cycles. A static law cannot effectively govern a dynamic, self-altering system.
Especially when that system doesn't respect national borders.
Exactly.
An algorithmic update pushed from a server in Tokyo alters the physical driving behavior of a car in London and changes the medical diagnostic criteria for a hospital in New York, all within like 72 hours.
And that is exactly why the digest emphasizes the push for global standards. If the European Union mandates absolute transparency for predictive healthcare AI, but another major global power allows developers to completely shield their proprietary models,
You get a patchwork.
you get regulatory safe havens. It leads to disjointed, incompatible systems governing international data and commerce. The challenge lawmakers face today is creating a framework that is flexible enough to allow innovation, but rigorous enough to prevent algorithms from institutionalizing discrimination at a massive global scale.
When you look at this entire ecosystem we've explored today, it's just mind-bending. From the neural networks forecasting the latent variables of our diseases, to the edge computing inside our cars optimizing our physical environments, to the generative models calculating the exact frequencies required to move us to tears.
It's all connected.
The ultimate challenge is figuring out how human beings fit into a mathematically perfect world.
It forces a profound reevaluation of our priorities. The through line in all these sources today is the optimization of the human experience.
Yeah, removing the bumps in the road.
Exactly. The algorithms are designed to remove friction. They remove the friction of late-stage disease. They remove the friction of a stressful commute.
Yeah.
And they remove the friction of creative trial and error.
But I want you, listening right now, to really sit with what that means for your life tomorrow.
Yeah.
If AI becomes flawlessly personalized in our vehicles, if our healthcare is perfectly predicted and our art is mathematically engineered to trigger our dopamine receptors, what happens to human serendipity?
That's the real question.
If our routes are always optimized to bypass traffic, we never stumble upon that weird little coffee shop on the back roads.
We lose the accidents.
Right. If our diseases are preempted before we ever feel a symptom, do we lose the perspective that comes from vulnerability? If our music is perfectly engineered to please our ears, do we lose the jarring, beautiful, messy unpredictability of life that no algorithm can ever truly replicate?
It's something we all have to figure out.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep questioning the invisible forces shaping your reality. Keep looking for the mechanisms behind the magic, and we will be right here ready to unpack the next big shift with you.